Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. An RSS Charter with nearly 200,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine expected this week. This story takes the lead in our 1059th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 2nd March 2021. Details after this break.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
Welcome back. Some 175,000 Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines from India were expected to land in Antigua and Barbuda over the weekend. Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda Gaston Brown says 40,000 of those vaccines are allotted to Antigua and Barbuda, while the remainder will be distributed to other Caribbean countries. This, he says, is being made possible through a regional security system charter.
In St. Lucia, 25,000. St. Vincent Grenadines, they're getting 40,000. And Suriname will be getting 50,000.
The Prime Minister says, as a show of regional support, the OECS countries benefiting from the kindness of the Indian government will be paying it forward to their neighbors in Grenada.
We will give 5,000 St. Vincent Grenadines, 5,000 from St. Lucia, and 2,000, I believe, from St. Kitts and Nevis.
Trinidad and Tobago's Police Commissioner Gary Griffith says there has been a 90% reduction in non-attendance of police officers in court. Meanwhile, the head of the Court and Process Branch calls for harsher punishment for errant cops. Urvashitawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News reports.
In 2019, there were 1,843 cases of police officers not attending court. In 2020, that number was reduced to 318.
In some areas, there was over 90% reduction in non-attendance of police officers at courts.
The police service intends to take that number down further with this suggestion by Senior Superintendent of Police Court and Process Branch Nasruddin Prag to move non-appearance from a Category B offence, which attracts a fine, to a Category A offence.
The intention is to move that Category B offences to Category A, so that the Commissioner of Police will have the power then to dismiss the officer for non-appearance when the state have to pay thousands of dollars when they are victims of crime outside there. Because we could discipline the officer today, but what happened to the victim of crimes? What redress they really have?
The issue of the non-appearance of officers arose when some alleged it was this failure which allowed serial rapist Joel Balcon, fingered in the Andrea Barrett murder case, to walk free. But even if officers did attend court, how well equipped are police prosecutors to face off against the country's best criminal attorneys? Well, that question was posed by the Police Complaints Authority in 2016, and the same question was asked by Justice Frank Sipasad in 2019. In his 2019 judgment, the judge wrote, quote, "It's simply untenable to have police prosecutors, most of whom lack legal qualifications, charged with the mandate of prosecuting the majority of magisterial matters," end quote. It's also an argument we put to the Commissioner.
That's a very good point. I have to be very careful. I'm walking here on eggshells here. That is correct. In some countries, you're not going to have the police officer being the prosecutor. You're going to have trained attorneys that will mesh neck and neck with the criminal lawyers. And with that, you know that it is going to be, it's difficult for the police officers. Sometimes the police officers, they spend over half of their time now in court instead of them doing policing. But what you're speaking about is a massive transformation in that aspect of policing, where there's going to be a massive budget. And with a budget like that, even at this time, I'm spending 1/3 of my day every day stopping suppliers from pulling the plug on us.
And what if some goodwill organization or private sector entity agrees to foot the bill to train such officers?
We have very good police officers who have left immediately when they become attorneys, when they are very well trained. Some of them on either side, they've become ministers. So that is always going to be an issue. You train the person to such a level when he realizes that instead of me risking my life on a daily basis, let me go out there and make 3 times the money with less risk. So that is always a catch-22 situation with that.
Urvashi Tiwari Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
Venezuelan nationals who were left stranded at Piarco International Airport were set to leave the country on Friday evening. The Venezuelans were supposed to be repatriated on Thursday, but the plane they scheduled to travel on was denied permission to enter Trinidad and Tobago. The National Security Minister says the government worked on getting an exemption confirmation from the U.S. government for what he says is a humanitarian flight. Jewel Brown of TV6 News reports.
In response to questions from TV6 News, the U.S. Embassy says it was aware of a request from the government of Venezuela to Trinidad and Tobago's National Security Ministry concerning the use of a sanctioned aircraft to conduct a repatriation flight. The U.S. Embassy told TV6 News that U.S. sanctions targeting Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, his allies, and those who support them are designed to permit the continued provision of assistance to the Venezuelan people. The Express newspaper is reporting that the designated plane belongs to Venezuela's national airline and that the flight was cancelled, leaving 100 Venezuelan nationals stranded at the Piarco International Airport on Thursday. In the House of Representatives on Friday, National Security Minister Stuart Young responded to an urgent question on the matter raised by opposition MP Saddam Hussein. Minister Young gave additional details to that contained in the National Security Ministry's press release on Thursday regarding a flight arranged by the Venezuelan government meant to repatriate approximately 100 Venezuelan nationals.
When it came to the Ministry of National Security, that was then fed out to the necessary bodies, including the Civil Aviation Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, who on Wednesday red flagged that the particular aircraft, a Conivesa aircraft that was to be used by the Venezuelan government, unfortunately fell into the band of sanctioned aircraft by the United States government. As soon as this was brought to my attention, we informed that in those circumstances, we would not be permitted to grant permission for sanctioned aircraft to come in.
On February 7th, 2020, the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control announced on its website that it had identified the Venezuela National Airline as subject to sanctions as part of the government of Venezuela pursuant to a U.S. executive order.
Due to the nature of this exercise arranged by the Venezuelan government, a mercy humanitarian exercise to repatriate their own nationals, I immediately reached out to the United States Embassy personnel in Trinidad and had a conversation with them, telling them that we believed in these circumstances, the humanitarian nature of this exercise. We would like to know what was their position with relation to sanctions, the aircraft being one of those that fell into the sanction list.
The U.S. Embassy told TV6 News that the United States maintains broad exemptions and authorizations that allow for the provision of humanitarian assistance and views repatriation flights as supportive of those Venezuelans living outside of Venezuela who wish to return to their homeland. The embassy said it will work closely with the ministry to provide any necessary information to facilitate the safe and lawful repatriation of Venezuelans.
In addition, the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs were working with National Security. The Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs were able to secure in writing from the United States that this particular exercise would not attract sanctions. Immediately, that information was provided to the Venezuelan government. And today, just before coming here, I have signed the approval for a flight at 6 p.m. this afternoon for the Venezuelans to be repatriated.
MP Hussein had a follow-up question.
Did the minister, in his duty, complete or did that due diligence to understand that this aircraft that was going to come into Trinidad was sanctioned, having regard to the fact that this airline was sanctioned since March 2020 by the U.S. government?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. No matter how the member tries to twist and turn what was just said, the facts remain the same. There was absolutely nothing different that could have been done by a government that acts within the normal diplomatic channels and according to the normal protocols and procedures.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
You are imposters. You could never emulate the late LSF Burnham. Minister of Local Government Nigel Dharamlal told members of the National Assembly's main opposition on Thursday. In contrast, opposition member Ganesh Manipal lambasted the local government ministry. HGP's Wendell Badri has the details.
The Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Nigel Dharamlal, highlighted that throughout his travels around the country, supporters of the APNU AFC have tearfully approached him with complaints against the former administration while it held office. Against that backdrop, he posited that the members on the opposition benches are imposters.
The PPPC had to go in Mocha and build Burnham Drive. Shame on you. Shame on you. Because you could not uphold the legend of LFS Burnham. Because none of you have the qualities of LFS Burnham. You know what? You are imposters. You are all imposters.
Meanwhile, Member of Parliament with oversight of local government, Ganesh Mahipal, likened the 2021 budget to that of a disaster. Mahipal alluded to a breach of Article 13 of the Constitution of the country, where he highlighted that adequate consultations were not held in putting together the budget. Article 13 speaks to inclusionary democracy by allowing for participation of citizens in the management and decision-making processes of the state, with particular emphasis being placed on those decisions that affect their well-being. Mahipal posited that the people of this country are yearning for the return of the APNU AFC coalition to government, to which he gave them discharge.
And I say to them here and now, hold your faith, hold the line of battle, comrades. Joy comes to us in the morning, for an election will come again. And what the PPPC did in the March 2nd, 2020 elections will never reoccur in this country again.
The APNU AFC MP also spoke to the increase in salaries for public servants, submitting that even though the Vice President, Bharat Jagdeo, posited that $10 billion was earmarked for increase in public servant salary, it is just a fluff coming from a bluff.
That line item caters for new staff members, promotions in the public service, which includes our police, fire and GDF servicemen and women. And may I remind this Honorable House that in 2020 an approved sum of over $6 billion was spent from this very line item, but there was no salary increase for the public service workers.
The honourable member also called out the Ministry of Local Government, referring to it as a ministry that has fallen from grace over the past 6 months. He highlighted several violations by that ministry of Chapter 2801, which speaks to the Local Democratic Organs Act of the state.
Let me remind Dharamlal and Anand Prasad, honourable as protocol dictates, the clerks of councils, the REOs, the town clerks and overseers are not at your disposal. They are creatures of the respected elected councils. They are to provide guidance and execute the mandate given to them by the council. Stop giving political instructions to these public officers.
The Member of Parliament for the proffered the view that even though 17 million Ghana dollars was pinpointed for the Georgetown Enhancement Program, the capital has been returned to the state of a garbage city.
The ministry is now requesting over $100 million. And I bet my last dollar that the state of the city a year from now will be worse.
Wendell Badri, HGP Nightly News.
Calling all vehicle owners. Inspection and licensing continues, and at Hubbard's we want you to be ready. From February 16th to March 31st, registration numbers 2,501 to 5,000 with single registration letter, or registration numbers 251 to 500 with plural registration letters will receive 11% off new torque tires and PowerMax batteries. Don't get caught unprepared. Visit us today at the Motor Department in Mount Gay or the Tire Bay in Grand Anse near to the building supplies.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.